Info at virginiatalkradionetwork.com.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
Even though it was the birthday weekend, mine in the house, I have to get my usher on for a very brief moment to start the fast lane and confess that I didn't have a lot of cake. I only had a couple of bites out of a piece of cake my wife got for me. She had a couple of bites. We are both in a health phase of our life, and it's wonderful, where we're not consuming much. Meanwhile, I think our kids are on like the opposite end of the spectrum. They're consuming way too much. Getting to bed is a real challenge because you asked about that as well here in the fast lane. I bring all that up to say, there's a segment of Liberty Flames fans out there who want to have their cake and eat it too. Look, it does not take a brain surgeon out there to figure out the Liberty Flames had to make changes after a year in which they were projected to win Conference USA at the beginning of the offseason and throughout the offseason, at the beginning of the season. They were projected to win.
Not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six. Not seven.
Nope. They were projected to win at least 8.5 games this season. And instead, we could play that soundbite again and just flip it around for how many losses they had. As LeBron would remind us.
Not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, not seven.
But 8 losses on the year for the Liberty Flames. By the way, I wonder if it really rankles Trey's feather whenever he has to hear that. Because I don't hear him mention the sound effect we use. Obviously, he doesn't use it because he's a big LeBron guy. He can't see that LeBron is the second best basketball player of all time, not the first. But I never hear him discuss that or use that on the morning warm-up from 7 to 8 a.m. right here on the VTRN Sports app. And I go back and listen regularly because
guess what? We keep receiving
at the morning warm-up, wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as VTRN Sports on Facebook Live and YouTube. So I do, even though Trey might doubt it.
Do you believe that? Huh?
And Ty might go,
oh, no.
Yes. I like to go back and listen regularly. I bring that up to say Liberty Flames fans want to have their cake and eat it too. You can't sit there and want a level of change in the offseason and then be mad that change is happening and view it as an indictment on Jamie Chadwell and their head coach. See, the gist of it for this is, I don't think it matters who's the head coach. If Evan Dickens had the year that he had, gone to the transfer portal. Dante Lee emerges as a pass-catching threat, gone to the transfer portal. The reality is those guys are going to command more at their next stop. I would be maybe not power 2 SEC Big Ten, but I'd anticipate they'll go to power 4 programs, even if it's lower level. And if that's the case, TJ, am I off base in saying, what are you going to do if you're Liberty? How in the world are you going to be able to pivot and adjust in that regard?
Well, you got to keep using the transfer portal the best way you can. Chadwell's good at bringing in players more than he is keeping them. So I think they'll find replacements, but at the same time, maybe not exact copies, because where are you going to find an exact replica of Evan Dickens or Von Blue?
I don't think you're going to find an exact replica, but maybe you find different types of players. Maybe you get somebody who's even more physical and maybe has more, athleticism and breakaway speed than either of those two had. People thought they were getting that with Juju Gray at running back, but he hadn't been able to stay healthy. That's been a bugaboo of his entering his time at Liberty. It's how he was available as a 3-star recruit from NC State, and it's something that frankly has seemingly dogged him over on the mountain. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't sit there and be critical of how the Liberty Flames performed and then be upset when players leave. And it's not just the two that we mentioned. And you can put Von Blue in there as you just did, TJ, but Von Blue and Evan Dickens out of the running back room and Dante Lee out of wide receiver. But I'll put the quarterback position in there. Look, we knew this was coming. Jamie Chadwell indicated this on National Signing Day, but if we saw the season unfold for Liberty, you didn't need to get to that point to realize these words we're going to come out of Jamie Chadwell's mouth.
It's big. I met with all the quarterbacks today actually, and told them, obviously I know Coach Corn's gone, but just said that we're going to be heavily involved in quarterbacks in the portal. We're going to have him involved. Obviously, Vasco being hurt, can he come back and be healthy? Hopefully he can. We feel good about that, but you don't know. So you got to as the head coach, I gotta lead the program in the way that what's the information I have now. It's not like we have a second portal and the quarterback's good, so we're going to go after what we can to help us win games. And so I told them that that we're going after one for sure, probably two, because we got to bring guys in, and compete for the job. Because if you look at it, and some of our guys might leave too, so that I'm sure that'll be coming out. So some of our quarterbacks will be going in the portal as well because they want to play. So we're going to be heavily going after quarterbacks in the portal.
So Jamie Chadwell obviously indicated that change was going to happen. And the reality is, did you not see the Liberty Flames quarterback performances for much of the year? They kept with, and again, I don't know if this is the call that I would have made. I would have loved to have seen more from Michael Merdinger at quarterback. I thought he was good, not great. 21 of 41 passing total throughout the year, made 2 starts, including the regular season finale. The season finale, they didn't make a bowl game. But the season finale against Kennesaw State. 21 of 41, 350 yards and a touchdown. He was serviceable. I thought he was a little bit more athletic, maybe because Ethan Vasco was athletically compromised. He had that left shoulder injury, but also a little bit more accurate. And then Vasco, even before the injury seemingly really flared up over the second half of the year, I never thought he looked like he was settled into this offense. Jaden Bradford also entering the transfer portal, along with Michael Merdinger. Merdinger over the weekend, Bradford a week and a half ago. But Bradford's the guy that was the 4-star recruit from IMG Academy down in Florida. And as it's been described to me, take this for what it's worth, he had, Heisman caliber highs and JV, high school, caliber lows. The good looked really good. And it's on the coaching staff to get that out of him. But the bad looked really bad, and things that it seemed like they tried to continue to emphasize, and it just never took for whatever reason. Sometimes that is on the coaching staff. Sometimes I think it's reasonable to say it also is on the player. I am not just blame the coaches like it was 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. These guys are all in some form of rev share compensation at Liberty. When you're getting money, we're going to treat you like an adult, which means when you're not performing and doing what you're supposed to do, we are not going to unjustly criticize you, but it's reasonable to point out that the flaws cut both ways. So I look at it in that regard. And maybe I'm off base, but that's to me the thing where all of a sudden you see these players enter the transfer portal and Liberty Flames fans are sitting there viewing this as an indictment on Jamie Chadwell. If you want to view the season as an indictment on Chadwell, that's totally fair game. It was an underwhelming season, and they have gone backwards in each of his 3 seasons. Granted, 12-0, conference championship game win to 13-0, and then 1 loss to an Oregon team that was a top 5 caliber team in the country that year and had a slew of NFL players. I don't really hold against them. I don't think anything was going to happen for Liberty in the Fiesta Bowl. Frankly, I think JMU's probably going to be in a similar spot. Maybe not exactly that way, but I think it'll be in a similar spot when you get done listening to the game as part of our pentuple header. Is that what we would call it? A 5-game slate this coming Saturday with 3 college football and 2 NFL games. What's it called, TJ? Lean into the mic. Lean in the mic.
Quintuple, I think it would be called.
All right. Well, then we'll go with quintuple header. I'll presume you know more about this than I do. But am I all base in sitting there, TJ, that, look, if Flames fans are disappointed because, oh my goodness, it's going to be hard to replace Dickens, Blue, Dante Lee. I don't dispute that part of it. The production was really good. Granted, they replaced Quentin Cooley with Evan Dickens. Historically, they've done that. They replaced C.J. Daniels with Dante Lee, and I don't think Lee will garner quite the interest that Daniels did, where he was at LSU and then ended up settling in at Miami this past year. He'll need to have a good game this Saturday, game 1, by the way, of that pentuple header on Saturday in our slate of college football, as he's with Miami there at Texas A&M to kick off our Saturday slate. But if you're in that position, am I all base in saying, I get the frustration for Flames fans because you worry about the lost productivity. I get the fact that you may be worried about the coaching staff, but viewing top-end players departing as an indictment on the coaching staff, or these quarterbacks leaving that were not good enough to carry you this year. I mean, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't sit there and be like, oh my goodness, these quarterbacks weren't good enough to carry it. If you kept him around, then be upset. But if you're changing it up, trying to improve, don't be upset. Like, again, by the way, if you disagree or agree, Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But that's what happened over the weekend. There really was no game that took place. Virginia Tech men's basketball and women's basketball both won handily. Tech men more comfortably than the women. Virginia, they were off because of exams. Same thing with Liberty. They have not played since the loss to NC State. They play Midway Christian tomorrow night over in our spot, by the way.
Go home to Bel Air.
And then they get ready for Dayton, which is the game that most people justifiably are eyeing. So that's why we're talking about this. There wasn't a lot. Washington Commanders won yesterday, but it was without Jaden Daniels. More on that in the Fast Five at 5-ish in a moment. And Candy Waller, Madam President, Bowie TV Sports, 540 and covering the Commonwealth. So that's why. But the thing that kind of dominated from a local angle over the weekend, TJ, was what happened with Liberty. And am I off base in thinking there is a segment of the fan base that wants their cake and eat it too? They want there to be change, but then when there's change, they're getting upset, and you can't really have it both ways.
Ed, they want more than cake. They want extra frosting on it. And
like my kids.
Yeah, exactly. But you can't. I mean, you can't have extra frosting with it because the college football landscape charges extra for that frosting, Ed.
That's a good point. They do. If you want the extra frosting of better players or to retain your good players, that's a challenge. John Manson from ACRadio.com, I thought hit the nail on the head last week when he said, you'd love to keep Evan Dickens, but would you rather take those resources and spread them around to more players and have more depth and trust that Jamie Chuball, for all the flaws that we can mention about this year's team, and they are justified for the Liberty Flames, the one thing you can say is historically his offense has been able to find plug-and-play players at running back, and then the system is set up so that your number one wide receiver, Dante Lee recently, before that, CJ Daniels, others, Isaiah Likely's the most obvious example because he's gone on to a great career with the Ravens in the NFL, and he was a tight end, but all three of them are examples of the pass catcher du jour has been able to benefit off of the running game. So I will at least trust that that part makes sense, and if I'm a Liberty fan, I'd rather have all of those assets. I'd rather have more quality assets across the board than one, especially if one gets injured and then you're up the creek.
Exactly. And I think what fans need to understand is we're not Virginia Tech where we can get a $20 million donation. Liberty's a rich school, and I don't know where that money comes from for athletics as far as NIL goes. I know that something is there, but unlike UVA, who got 10 mil 2 weeks ago, BT on Tech sideline, our friends there, announced today they got a $20 million deal. So Liberty doesn't have $20 million to give one player, no matter how special they are.
And more on that in the Fast Five at 5-ish, but it's a good point about that as well. You have to spread your resources around. And, you're not going to hit on all the resources. Like, I think this is the other thing is when you're constructing a roster, you're not always going to hit on them. Like, Liberty basketball, everyone knows about Talon Peter and Javon Mothmore, and they were great finds. Owen Aquino, even though he was only a one and done, contributed to Liberty before going to High Point on a bigger NIL deal. But you're going to have guys that are misses. Isaiah Enan, 4-star talent, but can't seem to stay healthy. And I hate that for him, but let's be real, he's hardly played at Liberty and hardly played before that at Minnesota. I think it's justifiable. Josh Smith is another example of that as well, where when you continue to have that, it's because if you're Liberty, you're going to take guys that you believe, I think in a perfect world, Chadwell football, McKay basketball, and in other sports too, you're going to take players that are cultural fits. But you're not in a spot where you're going to, heck, the big boy programs, the biggest ones are going to have years where they take transfers, and not all of them hit. Again, ironically enough, I'll use some in our backyard as an example. For every Mansour Delane who left Virginia Tech and was a stud cornerback at LSU, and by all accounts will be a day one first round or day two, second or third round selection in the NFL draft, you're going to have a Braylon Moore who underachieves, or you're going to have a CJ Daniels who just doesn't seem like he was properly utilized, shocking to many, by Brian Kelly, who, by the way, I know I bash Notre Dame a lot, but Notre Dame is clearly upgraded with Marcus Freeman over Brian Kelly. Like, I would much rather see Marcus Freeman win than Brian Kelly win at Notre Dame, and I think he's a lot easier to root for, and frankly, a guy I want to keep around. More on that maybe in the Fast Five at 5-ish. But if you're Liberty, you've got to be able to budget your roster across the board. Again, none of this is to say you can't be critical of the season the Flames had. You should. Doesn't mean that Jamie Chadwell and the staff are not entering 2026 on a pretty hot seat. They are. If it goes south, I think we're seeing the end of it. But in order to prevent that from happening, and I think it's very doable. Remember, this is Conference USA. This is not the SEC or the Big Ten or a power program where you enter the year on the hot seat and you kind of have the books written on you. All the best players in Conference USA are going to transfer out. It's not just Liberty, it's everybody else. So if you get the right batch of players in next year, it could happen. Not saying it will, but it could. And really, Western Kentucky's had a pretty good coaching staff, but they had some inexplicable head-scratching losses. La Tech was a big example this year. I love what Kennesaw State got out of their first-year head coach this year, but it's also a concern that, can he replicate that when you have to rebuild your roster every year? Liberty, again, their first year with Jamie Chadwell was as good of a first year as we've ever seen for a coach. But then the game changed on him, and he had to rebuild, and it got challenging the last couple of years. Not to say, again, I think you can get to 9, 10, 11 wins in Conference USA as a regular season. Like, I don't think it's unreasonable. I'm just saying, understand what you're up against if you're a Liberty fan. So keep that in perspective. Meanwhile, proper perspective. We will get more on that. Fast 5 to 5-ish, not on Liberty Flames, that later this week. John Manson said to join us. But there are other topics, including what TJ just alluded to kick off.
It's time for Fast 5 at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
Virginia Tech Athletics did, in fact, receive a record-setting anonymous gift of $20 million, which is about 10% of the $229 million investment in athletics that are expected to be coming from operational and philanthropic sources over the next 4 years into Blacksburg. How big of a deal is this? David Cunningham of TextLiveline.com will lend his perspective. 5:45 today here in the fast lane. But from my perspective on the outside, I think it's a big victory in the sense that you're 10% of the way there. This type of gift can spur somebody else to donate a little bit more. Let's not look any further than what transpired in Charlottesville over the course of the 2026, not 2026, we're not even at that point. Over the course of the 2025 season, Virginia Athletics, back on November 25th, 2 days before Thanksgiving, about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, announced a $5 million gift from Drew and Kate Parker. I don't know who they are, but it is to be used at the discretion of Carla Williams for men's basketball. And it is the 5th transformational gift of over $1 million to Virginia Athletics over the course of this season. When you start getting one large gift, it can often spur other wealthy individuals to make similar donations and contributions. Virginia has gotten ahead of that in a good amount this year. But when you look at what Virginia has gotten now, 5 transformational gifts, when you include that one for men's basketball, we got 4 ones before that, which were made for football. I guess we're technically going back to the end of last year because 2 were in December of 2024. And then they also had one in September and then in October as well of 2025. But 4 in the last calendar year for football, 1 more for basketball at Virginia. A lot of that is because the first person to make a gift then spurs other wealthy, competitive people who sometimes, and this is a good thing, I think, for schools and philanthropic causes as well, but one person gives a lot, and other people then want to contribute and show how much they can contribute to a cause. And yes, there may be a little bit of vanity involved in, as far as the givers, but from the receiver standpoint, what do you care? You're just getting the gift that can help your cause go forward. That is a big part of why this is big for Virginia Tech. Meanwhile, speaking of Virginia Tech,
Number 4.
we will get more from David Cunningham of TextLiveline.com at 5:45 on this development as well. But Danny Rocco is reportedly set to step down as the head football coach at VMI and carve out a role as the defensive backs coach at Virginia Tech. I'm not surprised that we're seeing this because VMI is one of the most challenging places to win in all of college football. Rocco, part of that legendary Rocco family, LCA knows all about that. And in high school football, I think LCA, I don't think this is an understatement, LCA has one of the top 5 coaching staffs in all of high school football in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I know they did not hoist any hardware for a state championship this past weekend, but the results in history there, player development-wise, making the most of their resources, running a program and championships, speak for themselves. But if I'm anybody at VMI, that is one of the most challenging jobs. I continue to say that 2021 season that Scott Wackenheim had was maybe one of the most underrated seasons all time in college athletics. And granted, they benefited because it was spring football as opposed to fall, so those freshmen were not in the brutal stages of the rat line at VMI. I get that. I also would say it's also reasonable to point out that you got spring football. And so when you're in that particular position at VMI, yeah, you had a coaching advantage because there's a lot of chaos and the structure around there is designed to thrive in chaos. But when you take all that away and you're just trying to play on a level playing field against everyone else in 1A, 1AA, it's really hard to sustain success there over a long period of time. I don't think they'll ever get away from 1AA FCS as a point of pride. I've heard a lot of people who've expressed that to me. But in terms of what you can gain out of it, that's an entirely different debate. Meanwhile,
Number 3.
fascinating. Ross Dellinger tweeted this out, and we'll get Shane Metlin's perspective on this in just a moment. But there's a photo that's now circulating on Twitter from an individual named Scott Kushner, who happens to have some kind of job in the regular real world, but notably a New Orleans Pelicans columnist. But most notably as well, he also was down at the Tulane gift shop. And there are photos that are on social media of packages basically on the floor because the merchandise is flying off the shelves. Again, I'm not saying we need to have a bunch of group of 5 teams in the college football playoff. I think eventually it'll get to 16 teams. I hope Notre Dame doesn't get the special provisions that they got in the revised 12-team format. I hope they're just treated like everyone else. But if you're looking at it, I would like to see at least one group of 5 represented. Nobody's under the delusion this means they're going to actually win a playoff game. Full disclosure, people have asked me whether it was 20 and a half, 21, 21 and a half, 22. I say lay it with Oregon. I think Oregon can name their score, and I think they'll win handily and be comfortably in the lead even at halftime of that game. I don't think they'll look to run it up, but Dan Lanning knows how to get an early advantage, even if it starts slow, Liberty Fiesta Bowl, early January 1st, 2024. So people remember that. I think JMU's destined for that, but just getting to these moments is a big boon, whether it's Liberty in the Fiesta Bowl or JMU, the college football playoff. That's why I like there being some kind of path. Ideally, I'd love to see 2 of them in this spot. I'm not naive to think it's going to happen, but I'd love to see that happen. Meanwhile, speaking of other news, number 2, yes, speaking of news that has transpired when it comes to the world of college football in particular, there were a number of quarterbacks that have entered the transfer portal today. DJ Lagway, Dylan Raiola, 2 5-star quarterbacks will transfer out of Florida and Nebraska, respectively. Lagway seems to be not the flavor du jour of the new coaching staff with John Summerall from Tulane. Dylan Raiola seems to be more looking for other opportunities. I think Trey Lyle hit it very well at Trey Lyle VT on Twitter when he thought that Patrick Mahomes really did drop the bag for Texas Tech to go out and get Dylan Raiola, who has said he models his game after Patrick Mahomes. And now Texas Tech is a flavor du jour type school in college football. Brendan Sorsby, by the way, Cincinnati quarterback, entering the portal. A lot of people have speculated it might be he and not Colton Joseph from Old Dominion who would go to Virginia Tech. The tweet of the day, though, of all this came out from Pat Forty. I don't always agree with him, but I love the tweet. 5-star QBs DJ Lagway and Dylan Raiola plan to enter the portal. May they someday be as good as the class of 2022 number 134 quarterback Fernando Mendoza, who, of course, won the Heisman over the weekend. By the way, a way to handle the Heisman correctly or to handle the Heisman incorrectly in number 1. Diego Pavia, sounding off on the Heisman voters with an expletive-laden tweet and, of course, photos of himself partying it up this past weekend in New York City. Look, dude, you're 25. Grow up. I get it. I understand that you've always played with a chip on your shoulder. Liberty Flames fans have seen it up close and personal where Pavia was 1 of 2, but gave them fits even in those 2 losses. And, of course, he's done wonders by helping elevate the platform of Vanderbilt, and it'll be very difficult to sustain that going forward. I actually think Clark Lee might be the best fit to take over at Michigan. Total culture reset. They had a really good program, great with player development and staff. Maybe a repeat of James Franklin, who leveraged Vanderbilt into another Big Ten job, ironically at Penn State. But to see that particular development from Diego Pavia, dude, he reminds me again a lot of Baker Mayfield. There were a lot of immaturities from Mayfield coming out of Oklahoma. I don't think Pavia is as talented. I think he can flip the perception culture-wise by force of nature, and some of that is good. But you have to know how to dial it back and when to say enough is enough. Meanwhile, we say enough is enough from the Fast Five at 5-ish. It's time for the experts' perspectives. JMU, Virginia, and the Washington Commanders, including a development that we will weigh in on more tomorrow in the Fast Lane, after Lake Lewis probably does with Trey Lyle in the morning warm-up, 7 to 8 a.m. tomorrow, right here on VTR and Sports. But Jaden Daniels, out for the remainder of this season, which I think is the wise move with just 3 games left. Seawall will weigh in on the back half of covering the Commonwealth Part 1. JMU, Virginia, and the Commanders next here in the Fast Lane.
The Red Tag year-end sales event at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. Holiday savings have started, and this is your last chance to save. Shop local and save more with straightforward pricing, plus exceptional service and selection. Stop the search. Head to the Motor Mile for over 900 pre-owned vehicles to choose from, and a huge selection of new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru, Kia, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. 11 new car brands, 900 used vehicles, all in one location. The Sheeler Motor Mile gives you choices more than any other dealer in the area. Sheeler owns the finance company. We make it easy to buy with in-house financing. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume. 11 new car brands, over 900 used vehicles, all in one location. Our biggest sale of the year is here. The Red Tag year-end sales event at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com. But hurry, this sale ends when the new year begins.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Brooks with the Farmers Bank of Appomattox, sending best wishes to all of our friends and customers during this pleasant time. We encourage you to think local, be local, and buy local this holiday season. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from your friends at Farmers Bank.
Hi, this is Bill Roth of the Virginia Tech Hokies. You know, all of us here at the Virginia Tech Sports Network want to send our heartfelt thanks and our very best holiday wishes to you and your family. We're grateful to have you as part of the Hokies community, and we appreciate you tuning in to our Tech football and basketball broadcasts right here on VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Happy holidays, everyone.
Have you been hit by the winter doldrums? Are you itching for a place with more than a couple hours of daylight? Start your journey to a warm weather escape with us. Scuba classes are forming right now at Aquatrek Adventures. We can have you ready for a warm, relaxing excursion to a sunny tropical destination, including our spring getaway to sunny Florida. Take the first step. Call Aquatrek Adventures on Mill Lane in Salem and visit our website at aquatrekadventures.com to sign up for the certification or your trip.
We wish you a lot of savings. We wish you a lot of savings. We wish you a lot of savings and great discounts. Now through December 24th at InsaneRadioDeals.com, when you use promo code Christmas, that's promo code Christmas at checkout, get 24% off all items at InsaneRadioDeals.com, including gift cards to the Yard on 5th Street, Downtown Cairo, Oliver's on Rivermont, and much more. 24% off all items when you use promo code Christmas at checkout now through December 24th at InsaneRadioDeals.com.
Looking for classic hits? We've got them on Rewind 1039. Lynchburg's classic hits, and we never stop the music for more than 90 seconds. Rewind 1039.
Hey, this is Kurt Warner, Hall of Fame quarterback, and you're listening to VTRN Sports 93.3 FM and the VTRN Sports app, the home of the NFL all season long.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
We mentioned it in the Fast Five at 5-ish. Is it transferable to JMU? That's what we discuss right now in part 1 of
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth, a look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with the JMU Dukes.
So we welcome in Shane Metlin of DNRonline.com, who is with us here in the Fast Lane. One of the storylines we discussed back in the offseason was that for JMU home football games, a portion of the proceeds for purchases at the bookstore the weekend of a home football game would go back in to JMU athletics, and particularly the ability to help pay for players. Meanwhile, the next step, speaking of bookstores, this guy named Scott Kushner, Shane, I don't know if you've seen this, that was tweeted out about an hour or so ago. He is a reporter out of the New Orleans area, but he tweeted a photo about how merchandise is flying off the shelves, particularly for the college football playoff for Tulane as they get ready to go to Ole Miss. Is the same thing happening at JMU in terms of the economic impact on their college football playoff appearance when they get ready to battle Oregon as part of our pentuple header 5-game slate of football this coming Saturday on VTRN Sports?
Yeah, I think we'll find out, exact details when it comes to that, like down the line, like real money figures. But I know Jim Schmidt, who's the new president of JMU, he was on another podcast, the JMU Sound Off, with those guys the other day, and he said that as far as when it comes to their tracking people who are visiting their websites, how much time they're spending on the JMU websites, things like that, that it's like roughly twice as much exposure as they got from hosting College Game Day a couple of years ago. It's like so far, like I think you're seeing a tangible benefit for the university for this happening at JMU.
Meanwhile, the game itself this coming Saturday against Oregon, I'm of the belief that if Oregon wants to run the score up, they can. I think Dan Lanning has historically shown that if he respects you as a coach, so you're not Mike Gundy or Deion Sanders, he will not run the score up on you, but they will try to get a comfortable lead fairly early, and if it gets to a large enough margin where they can kind of dial it back, they will end up doing that. Do you anticipate that being the game flow, or do you think JMU is going to be able to keep this game close at least for a half?
I think I honestly don't know. Like it's hard for me to judge, I guess, where JMU's talent level is relative to teams like that. I felt like they matched up pretty well with Louisville when they were full strength early in the season, just as far as the athletes on the field. And I think back to 2 years ago when JMU, looking at JMU's team, I didn't realize just how loaded that team was, that there was a bunch of first team, all Big Ten type players on that team. Does JMU have that right now? I don't think they do, but like, I don't have the power of hindsight like I do, like looking back at the 2023 team. So I feel like if JMU can keep it close early, maybe if they get some stops on the first couple drives, their confidence is going to be up there. If they let Oregon march down the field on the first couple drives or have a 3 and out themselves, like then maybe they start to believe that, yeah, this is just another level of football. But yeah, honestly, I don't know how good JMU is right now. That's one of the great things about seeing this game is that we're going to get to find out.
Well, and you get a chance to really figure this out as well, because it's the send off in all likelihood. If they pull the upset, they'll get another game, but they're 21.5 point underdogs at Oregon. To Bob Chesney, for JMU is just getting here still, even if they lose on Saturday, which most expect they will, just getting to this game enough. A big step forward for JMU football.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I guess we're going to see what happens with the group of 5 teams and their access to the playoff going forward after this. And maybe everybody will kind of lament the fact that JMU got in and ruined it for everybody else. But I do think it's a big step for the program to do this, in the first 4 years at FBS level, to consistently win under different coaches. And I think it's momentum that Billy Napier then can take as he takes over the program and say, hey, look, there's a path to the playoffs here.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the cool things about this is you'll get at least some kind of an answer one way or the other. We'll wrap it up on this. It's a fun hypothetical. I don't think it's going to happen, but because you retweeted it at Shane_DNR Sports, the news of former Billy Napier quarterback, I'll phrase it that way, DJ Lagway entering the transfer portal today. He ain't winding up in Harrisonburg, is he?
I would doubt it, but I mean, you never know. You never know what those relationships are like, just how deep they run. You've always, I hear this from basketball coaches, especially, that it's a lot easier at the mid-major level to keep somebody than it is to like get somebody to transfer in. When you're talking about a really good player like that, it wouldn't be exactly keeping him for Billy Napier, but maybe that relationship runs deep enough. I don't know. We also don't know where Alonzo Barnett's going to be next year. Maybe Jamie's not even on the market for a quarterback. So we'll see what all ends up happening here in the next few weeks.
Well, the element of free agency gives us more things to discuss along with basketball. Women's, they had a tough fight but couldn't pull it out against Notre Dame. Men's basketball as well. We'll get to that in the new year, Shane. In the meantime, have a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year to you and yours. And we look forward to chatting again in 2026.
All right. Thanks, Ed.
Now to the Virginia Cavaliers.
Jerry Ratcliffe, founder of JerryRatcliffe.com, the veteran UVA reporter, joining us in the fast lane. Hootie, great to be speaking with you. Starting with football. We now know, obviously we knew last week, that Virginia would face Missouri in the Gator Bowl. So the 27th of December. Not this Saturday, but next Saturday, December 27th. Do you anticipate that Virginia will be bought in addition to the fact that, as you wrote at JerryRatcliffe.com, they expect to be very healthy for this game?
Yeah, I think the Tony Elliott's done a pretty good job in preparing his team for big games, and particularly with more time to prepare. They appear to be pretty healthy. I think everything's going smoothly. They're in an exam break now, and a little bit of practice going on, but I think they'll be locked in and ready to play.
You mentioned being locked in and ready to play. Transfers. Jason Prevard, the cornerback, entering the transfer portal. The most notable of the three Virginia Cavaliers who've entered the portal. Mekhi Buchanan, who saw a little bit of time as an edge rusher, also entering the portal. Do you expect a lot more of this to happen before the bowl game? Do you expect a lot after, or maybe not nearly as much as people would anticipate, given the fact that Virginia seems to be loaded up to add more NIL resources to their football program already?
I don't think there will be a great exit like there has been in the past. I think it'll be very few, and part of that is because if there's players that Virginia wants to keep, for sure, they'll have the money to counteroffer whatever they get somewhere else, I would think. So I don't expect a great exit of Virginia players. I'm a little surprised Prevard is, but you never know. Some of these players' agents, you don't know what they're telling them, so you really don't know what to expect from any particular individual.
Yeah, I mean, the agents, this is not like you're dealing with your typical Rosenhaus, Tory Dandy, or big names in the NFL. This is agents can be used very loosely, Jerry, when it comes to college football.
Absolutely.
Glad to know we get some confirmation bias on that. Meanwhile, for college basketball, not that you would invest a lot in the Eastern Shore, the Maryland Eastern Shore victory last week, but it came off the victory against Dayton, that many expect to be one of the better teams. How surprised are you that we're getting more scorers that have developed with this offense? You knew they'd want to put up points, but are we starting to see Virginia's offensive vision round into form just in time for conference play to begin in a couple of weeks at Virginia Tech?
I think it is, yeah. I think Ryan Odom has done a really good job of just slowly bringing these guys along. I know there's still some things he wants to work on, like defensive rebounding and defense in general, but I think he's brought them along gradually, and knowing that the shooters were going to, once they become more familiar with one another and played in games, that they would improve, and we've seen that over the last few outings with so many different guys hitting three-pointers. They've had six, 7 guys making threes. You never know who's going to have the hot hand one night from the next, and that makes them really dangerous, because if you focus on shutting down one guy, then there's some other people out there who can hurt you. And I still think we haven't seen the best of the big men yet. I think they're going to get better and better as the season goes along, and it should be a really hard team to defend with so many different kinds of matchups they can provide with a big lineup, a small, quicker lineup, and again, so many guys who can hurt you with the ability to shoot the ball.
Yeah, great points, Jerry. We appreciate your time today in the Fast Lane. We'll wrap it up on this. Tony Bennett, Wally Walker going into the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. We'll get to that when we get closer to it, but everyone knows about Tony Bennett. We can get to that in a moment, but Wally Walker, overdue for him?
Oh, yeah, way overdue. I don't know what took him so long. I guess he was kind of forgotten by some people, but Wally Walker's, he and Barry Parkhill were the first guys to put Virginia basketball on the national map, and back in the 70s. And, of course, Wally was the MVP of the 76 ACC championship when they beat 3 ranked teams in less than 72 hours, and won the school's only title for a long, long time until Tony Bennett came along. So he went on and had an outstanding pro career as a player and a general manager and president of the Seattle Supersonics. So and now he's back at the UVA trying to help this athletic program be all it can be. So yeah, Wally's a very deserving person to be in the Virginia State Hall of Fame.
Oh, glad we could get that perspective. That's why we count on Jerry. I mean, you provide other good perspective, but for legends like Wally Walker and ones who, as somebody who he came before my time to get my usher on for a moment in the fast lane. That's why we rely on your expertise, Hootie. Thank you for providing that today in the fast lane and helping bring us young bucks up to speed on someone like Wally Walker.
More than happy to, Ed. Thank
Indeed.
you, brother.
Always our pleasure. Jerry Ratcliffe, we wish you a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. We'll chat again in 2026. When we return, we'll chat with David Cunningham of TechSideline.com. Before, after, maybe at a different time, Candy Waller, Madam President, on the Jaden Daniels being shut down by the Commanders news as well. That's still to come. VTRN Sports app and ask that smart speaker. Open VTRN Sports.
The Wrap Up the Year sales event is going on now at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Drive home a new 2025 Ram 1500 and save over $13,000 off MSRP. Shop Magic City's great selection of Grand Cherokees, now discounted up to $6,300. Don't miss out on the biggest savings of the year. See us today at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, 1750 Independence Boulevard in Bedford. MagicCityBedford.com. See dealer for details and 1526.
Sushi and sake. It's a fun blend. Come experience New Yamada for sushi and sake, the same fresh sushi you've come to expect, complemented by our new Asian fusion menu, highlighting the freshest filet mignon, plus pork belly and chicken, and grilled seafood like lobster, scallop, shrimp, tuna, and lobster with an Asian flair. Your meat is grilled and prepared to perfection every time, and our crab rangoon is the perfect start to every meal. Come experience New Yamada of Forest Sushi and Sake, 205 Bristol Mill Drive, in Forest behind the Graves Mill Center.
Hi, Danny from Gibbons Books Little Dickens. We believe in reading and play and in shopping locally for stronger communities. 3 times more jobs are created by local businesses versus online sales. This holiday season, live local and shop local for a better Central Virginia.
Hey, this is Jake with Western Ways in Forest. Shop our thousands of pairs of boots in store with personalized customer service and excellent pricing. Shop Western Ways this holiday season. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's from our family to yours.
Hey, small to medium business owners, if you're frustrated with slow IT support, high costs, or paying for services you just don't use, it's time for a change. Hi, I'm Colt with We Fix Stupid Computers. We provide reliable on-site and remote support tailored for businesses just like yours. And we go beyond just fixing problems. We empower your staff with real tech knowledge so they can work smarter every day. From repairs to training to full IT support, we save you time, stress, and money. Call We Fix Stupid Computers, 434-525-8590, where smart support meets real savings.
Looking for everything happening in and around Central Virginia that used to be in the morning paper? Start your day at the lynchburgportal.com. Get the latest news updates from Bill Trevero, plus up-to-date weather from VTRN's own in-house meteorologist, Matt Ferguson. So you're always in the know before you head out the door. Want to listen on the go? Stream classic hits on Rewind 103.9. Get breaking local news on WIQO, or catch the best sports talk and play-by-play on VTRN Sports, powered by ESPN Radio, all right from the portal. Looking to save? Check out insane radio deals for great local discounts, or explore local podcasts featuring the voices and stories that make our community special. Plus, connect with local businesses through the Lynchburg Business Alliance directory and stay in the loop on the latest events from Lynchburg Tourism. It's all right here. Local news, weather, sports, deals, and more at the lynchburgportal.com. Your gateway to everything Lynchburg.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Is he hearing the same thing that we are? Not that we're breaking news, but we get to it right now in part 2 of
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth, a look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with the Virginia Tech Hokies.
David Cunningham of TechSideline.com back with us once again here in the Fast Lane. David, great to be speaking with you. There have been a lot of nuggets when it comes to Virginia Tech football and their coaching staff. We will get to some of the retentions/departures from the Brent Pry era, not the assistant coach version, but the Virginia Tech head coach version of the Brent Pry era. But we will start off with who might be coming into Virginia Tech. The latest example that we heard was VMI's Danny Rocco stepping down to become part of the coaching staff at Virginia Tech. Have you heard that report that I saw from Football Scoop and some other places as well?
Yeah, Ed, great to be with you. I have heard. And, there's been a lot of rumors flying around about who Hokies are adding to the staff. A lot of stuff confirmed, a lot of stuff still unconfirmed, and nothing really officially announced. James Franklin hasn't exactly come out and said, hey, here's who's on my staff, but you can more or less piece it together. On that topic, I saw Brent Pry walking out of Merriman, the Merriman building, as I walked out of Castle Coliseum last week, right? I can pretty clearly say that Brent Pry is back on his staff, and we already knew that. But, yeah, I mean, this move with Rocco I think is interesting, especially because the Hokies opened the season with VMI, but his son sounds like his son is also joining the staff, so it kind of reunites father and son. And he was an advisor for Franklin at Penn State for a year or two, and then he went and took the VMI job. But I think the more smart people you can get around the program, the better. And I think you've kind of seen Franklin attack with that mindset as far as building a staff goes, and specifically on the offensive side of the ball. I think we have more clarity there, but he's keeping a couple of guys. But on top of that, he's bringing in some potentially big-time names and guys who are good recruiters, but also good developers of talent.
So other coaching staff news and nuggets for Virginia Tech. They retain wide receivers coach Fontel Mines. This is all reported. Nothing's officially been announced, but you can interject if we're off on any of this based on your insight as well. Virginia Tech retains Fontel Mines as wide receivers coach, Matt Morris offensive line coach, and they announced that, they did not announce, but he announced it himself. Running backs coach Elijah Brooks announcing he will not be back at Virginia Tech. Everybody saying that he's going to be replaced by Norval McKenzie, the running backs coach from Georgia Tech. How much of this is the fact that, you could justify retaining Mines, Moore, and or Brooks, but it's hard to bring back three people from an offense that really struggled.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tough part, Ed, you start up front on the offensive line. Matt Moore is a really good coach, but the Virginia Tech offensive line struggled this year. I'm not sure how much of that was on him necessarily, given that 3 of his top 7 guys were injured all year and did not play a single snap. I thought he did a pretty good job with them as far as run blocking goes, but this would be, if they made a change up front, this would be like their 5th or 6th offensive line coach in the last 6 years. That's ridiculous. I think Matt Moore is a good recruiter, and what that does is it allows you some continuity at that spot. You probably retain all your offensive linemen. That'd be my guess. You retain everybody, and you recruit well and continue to bring guys in. Of course, they had a big haul in this signing class. At wide receiver, Fontel Mines is a guy that James Franklin tried to get to Penn State, and Mines even got a bump at Virginia Tech because Penn State tried to poach him. I think Elijah Brooks is a really good coach at running backs. He's also a really good recruiter, but I think there's so much overlap. It makes it really tough for Franklin to kind of keep a guy who recruits the same area that everybody else that he's bringing in does, where Matt Moore is really good Pennsylvania and Ohio and West Virginia and Maryland recruiter, as are some of the other guys on the staff, as is Franklin. That's where his background is. Fontel Mines with Virginia. Elijah Brooks is a Maryland guy. And I think there's just a little bit too much overlap as far as recruiting goes. And I think running backs, maybe Franklin had somebody else in mind. You mentioned McKenzie. He's a guy who's traditionally recruited the North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida corridor a little bit. So you're kind of spacing yourself out. But, yeah, I think all those guys are solid coaches. It is interesting that they're keeping nobody on the defensive side of the ball except for Brent Pry, which is kind of funny. And then on the offensive side of the ball, they're keeping 2, they had an opportunity probably to keep 3 different coaches. So a little bit different, but I think James Franklin knows what he's doing, and he's piecing together a staff that he trusts more than anything.
David Cunningham of TechSideline.com stopping by with us here in the fast lane. David, we pivot off of that news and nuggets. We're not going to get into every player that's entering the transfer portal. That would be too much. We know that Lenora Sellers, I love how we have to phrase it this way in modern days, is, quote, nearing a deal to return to the Gamecocks, end quote, in 2026, meaning he is, quote, off the market, end quote, only in college football. Of the quarterbacks that are on the market right now, reportedly for the transfer portal. Where are your eyes and ears turning the most?
It's funny, Ed. I'm not really sure I can answer that, given that we don't really know everybody who's in the portal. I haven't really heard much about Virginia Tech having portal guys, and the tough part is technically it's illegal, Ed, for these staff members to be talking to portal guys. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because it does happen. But if the Hokies were talking to quarterbacks or hosting them on campus right now, it would be a violation of NCAA rules. So I think it's just difficult. I'm not trying to dodge the question. It's just hard because the transfer portal doesn't officially open for a little bit. And there are so many quarterbacks like Sorsby from Cincinnati that opened. He's bringing in Danny O'Brien from Penn State as his quarterbacks coach. And I would assume that Trace McSorley, the assistant quarterbacks coach, might follow suit as well and come to Virginia Tech. But what kind of offense does Ty Howell, the offensive coordinator, want to run? I'm not really sure. We haven't had a chance to talk about philosophies much with Franklin, but he talked about how he wanted to spread it out more and air it out more and look more, how do you put it? Look more exciting, because the Penn State offense was kind of dull at times, and the wide receiver production wasn't great at times. If you think back to that semifinal game against, I believe, Notre Dame last year, where the receivers only had like 1 or 2 catches. Like, this is an offense that I think James Franklin wants to be a little more exciting with how they play. I don't know what that means as far as quarterback goes. It's going to be interesting to see who the Hokies start to target once the transfer portal officially becomes open, because there are so many names that are already starting to go out there. Portal's not even officially open until January. We're not even to Christmas yet. And I think there are a lot of guys playing in bowl games. Somebody you got to keep in mind is Colton Joseph, I think, from Old Dominion. Ricky Ronnie, his former head coach, of course, tight relationship with James Franklin. He's a guy that's in the state right now, of course, because he's at Old Dominion. And I think he's a guy that the Hokies are very familiar with, as far as they played him multiple years in a row. But I'm not sure that he, Ed, is going to be the right fit for this style they want to play. I think they want a guy that's going to air it out a bit more. He's a guy who is going to put his shoulder down and run over guys a little bit more. So it's not quite black and white. It's a little bit more gray across the board as who the Hokies are targeting, but they're going to have to get a quarterback, at least one, if not two, from the transfer portal, because I'm not sure Pop Watson's going to cut it. I think most people understand that Virginia Tech needs a quarterback in this cycle, and the Hokies have the money to do that, Ed. That they have the funds to go get a guy. It's going to be really exciting to see who they go get, because that kind of determines a lot of their season next year.
Yes, it does. That and line play, which is the big challenge for Virginia Tech. David Cunningham of TechSideline.com with us here in the Fast Lane. We'll have a chance to look more into the transfer portal when we speak in the new year, David, that will have been open. And so we'll have more of an idea of the direction the Hokies and the rest of college football are starting to go. Men's basketball, we'll go to that right now. They lost those 2 games down in the Bahamas to St. Mary's and VCU, Thanksgiving and Black Friday. Since then, they've won 4 consecutive games. They've beaten South Carolina, maybe most impressively, George Mason, and then kind of the ho-hums of Western Carolina and Maryland Eastern Shore. Had they answered enough questions knowing that Elon is their final tune-up before they get ready to battle Virginia on New Year's Eve on the VTRN Sports app?
Ed, I think they have answered a lot of questions. Enough, I'm not sure. And I think we really won't know until the Hokies host Virginia on New Year's Eve. They've got Elon, as you said, the final tune-up game before Christmas, and then into ACC play they go. And they open with the Cavaliers, who I believe are ranked now. This is going to be an interesting opener because first time ever, Hokies and Cavaliers have bookended the ACC schedules, and you're jumping into it quickly. And you're also that's the first game after a break where you've been with your family. You guys might not have been in the gym as long. But I will say this, Ed, the Hokies lost Toby Lowell for a little bit down in the Bahamas. And it sounds like Lowell is aiming for a mid-January return. But if the Hokies don't have him for a long stretch of time, I like how they're playing right now. They have to get better defensively, and they have to be better on the glass. And I think those things will come, but they're going to be challenged in those areas. What I will say is their offense looks efficient right now. They haven't been perfect, of course, but I think Neoklis of Dallas is kind of finding his stride. I have been very, very impressed with Amani Hansberry and how he's playing. Jaden Shute continues to come along. I think it's meshing together, Ed, but the Hokies haven't really played a team that's going to challenge them as much as Virginia will, dating back to the Bahamas. And that's the tough part. I think George Mason was a good test, and the Hokies passed that test. But Virginia, I think, is a different animal. And once you get into the ACC play where it's game in, game out, toughest games you probably faced all season, it's going to be very interesting to see how they respond, because I like how they're playing, but they've got a lot of answers. Antonio Dorn, for example, Jalen Bedford, both of those guys missed yesterday's game. It sounds like one was sick, one was hurt. Sounds like they're going to be okay, but if they continue to have some injury woes, some guys missing a game here or there, that would be very tough to overcome in certain situations. So we'll see how it all plays out. But given the fact that they've been without Toby Lau, Ed, I think it's pretty impressive how they've played. 2 quality wins against South Carolina and George Mason. You can't not talk about that, but they still got questions to answer, I think.
Meanwhile, for Megan Duffy's team, and we'll get to the Virginia Tech Lady Hokies coaches show in progress with the great Evan Hughes when we wrap up with David Cunningham of TechSideline.com. But David, they lost to Duke pretty convincingly. They beat Presbyterian, but they kind of looked sluggish yesterday, as we heard on the VTR and Sports app, against East Tennessee State. Are you concerned right now about Megan Duffy's team entering conference play?
A little bit. Not too much, but a little bit. More than the men, I think. I think the toughest part, Ed, they've got a big one on Thursday against Florida State. This is a Seminoles team that's kind of reeling a little bit. If the Hokies can go down to Tallahassee and get one, that would be huge. And I think they are more than capable. The biggest thing is that their defense, I think, has been a bit hit or miss. And they came out slow out of the gates yesterday in that game that they ended up coming back to win against ETSU. But in an ACC game, you can't start slow. You've got to be intense and aggressive off the rip. And that's what I'm interested to see. I think they're playing okay, but man, the challenges are only going to ramp up, and they're going to need more scoring from others. But I have been impressed with some of the freshmen like Anaya Trent that have stepped up lately. I think they're adding more depth, but we haven't really seen them against great competition just yet outside of Duke, and obviously they did not fare well.
Last one for David Cunningham at the Real D Cunna on Twitter and Instagram, on W227BG Timberlake, WVGMA Lynchburg, WMNA Gretna Danville Southside, the VTR and Sports app, and Fast Lane Ed Lane to listen to all of our content wherever you listen to podcasts, as David Cunningham of TechSideline.com is with us here in the Fast Lane. How impactful is the $20 million anonymous athletics department donation that was given today?
It's huge, Ed. It's jump-starting a campaign that the Hokies are rolling out very soon. Invest to Win. It goes hand in hand with the slides what Babcock presented to the Board of Visitors, which were then approved in this funding plan. We're talking like $229 million. A big chunk of that, $120 million, is philanthropy. And this is a start. You have to raise money. You have to do it in chunks. This is huge. This is big time. The Hokies need to be a big time fundraising department. And this is the start of it, I think. I think it's huge. There's more donations coming from what I've heard. And I think this will kind of jumpstart things and get the ball rolling a little bit on that front. And the Hokies certainly need it. I think this is big time football, big time athletics that the Hokies are getting themselves into now, which is important because you got a big time coach in James Franklin, and he wants to win big time. So I think all these things together, if you have the money to do it, man, it certainly goes a long way.
It does. Meanwhile, the insight goes a long way at the Real D Cunna on Twitter and Instagram and TechSideline.com. David, thank you for your time. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we'll chat again when we get into 2026, as we're off the next couple of weeks because of bowl games, college football, the NFL, and college basketball combinations.
Sounds great, Ed. Talk to you in 2026.
Can't wait for it. David Cunningham of TechSideline.com.
And last but not least, or maybe least, just for you haters, left hand up the Commanders.
We'll get to the game action first. Candy Waller, Madam President, Bowie TV Sports. Seawall, have you, Donna Hopkins, Lake Lewis, who we'll find out about this tomorrow in the morning warm-up, I presume, 7 to 8 a.m. VTR and Sports app. Have you all thawed out after being in the press box yesterday at seemingly frigid and cold, from the looks of it, the Meadowlands up in New Jersey?
Yes, I think we've all finally thawed out. It was freezing in that press box. We may have well been outside with the team covering the game.
I mean, it sure looked like it. I'm sitting there going, what kind of conditions are y'all in? Like, what are we doing here? Y'all are bundled up in the press box. You're present in the press box, but you might as well have been frozen in the press box.
Seriously, because I mean I really like MetLife Stadium, and they have huge, beautiful windows with like all this natural light. But there was a serious draft. I mean, everybody in the first 2 rows of the entire press box was all bundled up like that. It was crazy.
Man, they were on a savings plan or something. It must be tough paying the holiday bills up in New York. I don't know what else to say if that's the conditions to which you were subjected. Now, the players were subjected to that as well. What does it say about this Washington Commanders team that, look, they're going to have changes with the coaching staff, not necessarily head coach Dan Quinn, but they're going to have player and coaching staff changes this offseason. But for the core to come out and still lead them to fight the way they did, and let's be real, what is a meaningless game with no playoff implications, is there a positive about the culture that Dan Quinn has got around this program that, look, the results haven't been there, but at least you're not seeing they're questioning their effort after that loss to Minnesota a couple of weeks ago?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that you've heard me say, Ed, is, these next games, especially when there looks like there's nothing to necessarily play for on from a scoreboard or a playoff potential, it is everyone there is still playing or coaching for a job. This is still an interview. You still need film. You still need proof that you are able to either, coach in this game or play in this game. These are still very important for a multitude of reasons for the people that we're watching. So you want to see the fight. You have to see the effort, and whether or not people are saying, okay, well, the Giants have the first pick in the draft, so maybe they don't care. Hey, listen, if they had the first pick in the draft and the Commanders still lost to them, that would have been horrible today. So, you still want to see some proof of life somewhere in there.
Yes, you get to see some proof for the Washington Commanders, and they'll have more opportunities. Philadelphia obviously playing for something this coming Saturday, part of our quintuple header VTR and Sports app when Philly is in Washington. But presuming Philly wins this game, they may not do much of anything the last 2 weeks of the year, particularly that season finale. They historically treated as an off week. So their chances for the Commanders to build momentum against their next handful of opponents. You've been around this team. How confident are you the Commanders may approach these as opportunities, not just the playing right, but young players in particular, a chance to establish themselves over the final few games of the regular season, given there may be some winnable, gettable opportunities?
Absolutely. I mean, we heard a name often yesterday that everyone many outside of the building didn't know, and that was Antonio Hamilton. We've been seeing Antonio Hamilton since training camp, and then he was on the practice squad. He was able to be elevated. He did a lot of great plays and overall effort in the Commander standard on special teams. Then due to injuries, we saw him get bumped up and get more defensive snaps on yesterday, and he made an impression. These guys are still trying to play. Again, these are all interview opportunities. Think of it as that. And it's still very much an opportunity for all of us to say, okay, who should they be keeping? Who should they be looking at replacing? It's all still an opportunity all the way around, and opportunities for these guys to get chances.
Antonio Hamilton, HBCU pride, much like our very own Madam President Candy Waller, although sorry to rub salt in your wounds, Candy, but his HBCU pride is South Carolina State, who won the Celebration Bowl that our listeners got to hear in controversial but thrilling fashion this past Saturday. We will pivot off of that so that we don't risk alienating you by rubbing salt in the wounds from being a proud Hampton Pirate herself, Candy Waller, with us in the fast lane. Madam President, we shift away from that nugget over to the news of the day. Jaden Daniels shut down for the remainder of the season. Is this the necessary call?
Absolutely. If Jaden is not medically cleared as of today, which he was not, then, hey, shut it down. This is a short week. The Commanders play at home on Saturday. Then they play in another short week with the Cowboys coming to Northwest Stadium on Christmas Day. Then there's a bit longer of a lull there from that Christmas Day game to then heading up to Philly to close out the season. It's kind of like, hey, it's been a talk, right? Since he's been injured, shut him down, let him play. How does this go? And he's still not medically played today. It was frigid out there. It was so super cold. And hey, listen, with it not being, much to play for, he needs to be healthy. He needs to be, and I think everybody has seen the impacts of not having that consistency at quarterback. this season, not having that time on task for the offense. So it's the right call. He's not medically cleared for contact. Then, hey, it's too much of a short week. Go ahead and shut it down.
Very good points made, as she always does. Madam President, Bowie TV Sports, Candy Waller with us in the Fast Lane. Seawall, good to chat with you today. Thank you for hopping on with us. When we chat again, we'll be recapping the season and the new year. In the meantime, Merry Christmas to you and yours. We are thankful. We don't say this lightly. We're thankful that we're able to have you as our boots on the ground reporter repping Bowie TV Sports here in the Fast Lane.
Thank you all so much for having me. I appreciate you all as well. And happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and all that great stuff to you all. And I can't wait to talk to you guys again in the new year.
Can't wait as well. Right back at our Madam President, Candy Waller. To wrap up the Fast Lane today, I know we're overdue. We send our apologies to Evan Hughes and our friends at the Virginia Tech Network, but we were also talking some Hokies. That's kind of why we went overdue. So we will get to the Megan Duffy Coaches Show with the great Evan Hughes. Then, after that, a little bit of ESPN radio before Monday Night Football. Dolphins, Steelers, VTR and Sports app in the greater Lynchburg area.
And get the reps in, and overall very pleased. I thought her last two games has been nice.
A good day for her.